Is it live or is it Memorex? Some of you are old enough to remember that commercial from back in the day, and the grand declaration that Memorex was making is suggesting that their product is so good that you can mistake it for being live. And aside from the fact that they're talking about cassette tapes, but we also understand the fact that talking about live, there's nothing better than being live. There's nothing comparable to it because there's nothing better than being live. I was thinking about it the other day. We were in Nashville and we were walking around downtown. And of course, as you're walking around downtown, all of the restaurants and all the places have live music going on. And as we were walking around and enjoying these different shows, I was realizing that all music, any music, even music that you don't like, even country music, is good when it's live. So I think about the one of the TV shows that I got to attend the live shooting of. It was Last Man Standing. Great show, and we got to be there and we got to watch it as it's being recorded and hear the crew and watching it being recorded as it's actually happening. It was quite remarkable. And as I was thinking about these things this week, it hit me that living in the moment is living live. That as we learn to live in the moment, as we learn to be here and now, it is the reality of living live, being live. And so we get it. We understand the idea of watching something live, listening to something live, being a part of something live. There's nothing comparable to it. And if we're talking about, programming, television programming, a good distinction, a good analogy of that is the difference between watching reruns and watching trailers, which versus watching it live. If you're not watching it live, you're either watching reruns or you're watching trailers that are promoting and suggesting the future. But the problem with reruns and the problem with trailers, as enjoyable as they both are, is they're not live. They're not in the moment. One of the ways I've thought about this in the last few months is there's been a few times where I'd be like at Angle Lake or somewhere with a spectacular scenery. And as I'm trying to meditate and trying to just wind down and trying to really get in the moment, I begin to think about the scenery and what's going on live as if it were a show. And it might be birds flying across a mirrored lake. It might be the clouds moving across the sky in the background. It might be ducks moving along the shoreline. It might be watching the river as it's moving and flowing and going against the rocks and the movement and all of these things that are going on around us all the time. To be able to stop in the moment and perceive them as if they were a presentation, as if they were a show, as if the creator is showing off his wonder and his abilities with all of these creatures and movements and breeze and sunshine and light. And as I was thinking about that and trying to get into this meditative mode thinking about that, I also started thinking about what would it cost if Hollywood were to try and reenact this show that I'm watching. What would it cost to create all the trees? What would it cost to have the lighting? What would it cost to have the lake? What would it cost to create that? And of course, it's unfathomable, the numbers of what it would cost. And yet we have this show, this presentation, this amazing production going on every minute of our lives. And living live is the ability to live there and to understand it and to see it and to take it in and to soak it in. And as I'm practicing this, I'm realizing how I'm not very good at it. And I think about, looking back over my life and thinking about escape and the tools that I use and the tools that we use as humans to escape. And I think looking back, the first obvious means of escape that I used in my younger years was narcotics. And when I was facing trials and facing challenges and facing discomfort and facing things that I wasn't a fan of, I would cope with it by using narcotics and escaping. And as you know about substance abuse, we use it because it works and it takes us away from the moment, gets us distracted, gets us somewhere else so we don't have to deal with the pain of the present. And it works until a few hours later when it wears off and you're back to square one. But as I was thinking about that, I realized that after I got sober and got narcotics out of my life, my replacement mode of coping with that was watching trailers. And I like that analogy because watching trailers, if you think about it, trailers are exciting. Trailers take the highlights, the best parts of a film, and they make it short and they make it sweet. And they capture all the things you'd want to see in that movie, and they put it down into just a couple minutes so that you see it and you go, wow, that's a lot of exciting stuff. And so trailers are very enjoyable to watch because they leave you hungry for more. They're giving you a taste of something and you want more. And so you're thinking, when this comes out, when this is available, I want to watch it. I want to be a part of it. And I realized how much of my life was living in the future, looking forward to what's ahead, looking forward to the things that are ahead of me so that I could avoid the present. But we realize that other people have the other challenge, and that is a challenge of wanting to watch reruns. And when we think about those times in our life where we find ourselves dwelling on the past, we realize that it's not only the failures of the past that we have a tendency to focus on and the reruns, watching them over and over again, dwelling on them, and escaping the present by dwelling on the past. We don't only do it for our failures, we also do it for our successes. And we find ourselves dwelling on our past successes and living in them, and it creates a number of problems for the present moment, as does dwelling on the failures. And while, of course, we understand that we have to have some sort of connection to the past, we understand that we need to have some sort of connection to the future, I think we also realize how often we are out of balance in not being here and not being in that moment and spending so much time somewhere else. I think it really came to light, this idea, some time ago when I was thinking through Isaiah 6. And Isaiah 6 is such a pivotal scene in Scripture, and it's one in which Isaiah is getting prepared for his oracle, that he's going to be sharing judgment to the people of Israel, and God is preparing them, and to prepare him, he allows him to, in a vision, to see God, and to see God in all of his majesty and all of his glory and all of his power, omnipotence, and that he's beyond human comprehension and all of his of who he is. And as he forgives Isaiah for the sins that have come up, and he realizes in the face of the majesty of God and the glory of God, and he forgives those, Isaiah's response is, "Here am I, Lord, send me." And those words connected with me as I was reading at that time, thinking about the significance of his statement, that he's saying to the creator of the universe, hey, I am now here. I've been in the past, I spent a lot of time in the future, I spent a lot of time in other places, but I want you to know, in the face of seeing your glory, I am now here, and I'm ready. And as I thought about the significance of that, I then thought about the significance of his name. And the significance of Yahweh's name is I am. And what God is connecting to Isaiah, as Isaiah says, "Here I am," and as God says, "My name is I am," what it communicates to me is, if we want to be in the presence of God, we must be here. Because here is where he is. And when we get here, that is when we find God. Because God is I am.